Someday my prince will come. Someday we'll meet again, and the way to his castle will be to be happy forever. I know. Yeah, happily ever after. That's a good one, right? Couldn't resist. We all lived happily ever after. Yes. My favorite quote, just wanted to share it again. And here we are in the third lecture of our class. And it's mostly talking about gender socialization. And we're starting with fairy tales. So, did you know there are thousands of different versions of Cinderella? Supposedly the first one, not this one, but the first tale was told first century BCE by the Greeks. And then we've got them from all over the world. And every single one of those princesses, I swear, lived happily ever after. You think? Was it happily ever after? Well, probably for the prince and the king for sure, right? Anyway, the versions of Cinderella that we know best in the United States and are kind of the main ones throughout the world was the first was by Perrault, who wrote kind of a sweeter version of Cinderella, more like the one that we know through the Disney movie, where the birds are really cute and they get dressed up. I love me a dressed up bird. And then there's another version, the Grimm's fairy tales, that have Cinderella in it. And the birds aren't so sweet in this one. And the stepsisters are even meaner, and ooh, they just get they get bloodied by the bird that pecks out their eyes. So it's definitely a gorier tale. Another person who put a slant on Cinderella was a poet and writer Anne Sexton in the 70s, and she wrote some really sarcastic versions of all of the different fairy tales. And for Cinderella, this was part of what she said. Cinderella and the prince lived, they say, happily ever after, like two dolls in a museum case, never bothered by diapers or dust, never arguing over the timing of an egg, never telling the same story twice, never getting a middle-aged spread, their darling smiles pasted on for eternity. Regular Bobbsey twins. That story. So in both of the stories, what happens, the princess gets all dressed up with the help of her fairy godmother or a bird in another version, and goes to the ball. But at midnight, she needs to get out of there quick because everything will just kind of disintegrate her dress and her coach will turn back into a pumpkin. And so she loses one of her glass slippers on her way tearing out of the ball, right? And so the deal is that the prince just loved her just because she was so beautiful. She didn't talk the whole time, I'm thinking, and goes around the whole village and tries to find this princess because he has one of her shoes. And whoever fits that shoe must be the princess. Doi, right? So when he and his entourage go to Cinderella's house, her two evil stepsisters, they hear all about it, and this is their big ticket out of there, right? This is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Get your prince. So they literally, in Grimm's for sure, and in Perrault's kind of a little lighter version of it, one of them slices off her heel so she can fit the shoe. The other one like cuts off her big toe, but that doesn't work because blood will tell as blood does, and they're all bleeding all over the place, so there's no way. Another one of the uh, sentences from Anne Sexton's version of Cinderella. That's just the way with amputations; they don't heal up like a wish. So yeah, pretty gory, right? A lot of people like Perrault's version better. It's a little bit sweeter. And you're thinking that, we don't read fairy tales anymore. But, a lot of school curriculum starts with fairy tales still for Our kindergartners is for pre-K and stuff. So they are totally around. And the deal is that they really decide what it is to be female and what it is to be male in these fairy tales, and how that if your prince comes, if you're a princess, that's that's the ticket right there. So gender roles are really shaped. They can be shaped. And also the deal is that when we look at fairy tales, all we have to do is look at Disney, right? I mean, there's princesses galore in those movies, and they're getting better, having some agency. But there's a lot out there that still keeps perpetuating the idea that all you got to do is hang out and be beautiful, and you'll get your prince, right? So the idea is to become obsessed with your looks, and if you are beautiful, you'll get everything you want. And so, let's see. So Disney products perpetuate the idea of romance and the binary, the opposite position of women and men, and women and girls' obsession to manifest socially defined beauty, right? So that I'm going to look beautiful the way I'm supposed to look beautiful, and I will get my prince. And it shows up in our culture all the time. This is several years old, at least maybe 5, probably not too much more than that. But this was Miss Teen USA top 5. And for a second, you think, wait a minute, are they like all the same or almost all the same? That's the top 5 most beautiful young women in the United States. So again, what's the ideal? What's the ideal? The socially defined beauty, right? And in our culture, we lean back to the dominant culture, which is white and a little more powerful, and has the money and all that. And that's our socially defined idea of beauty. And is that little glass slipper so small? Yeah. Have you ever noticed how small the feet and waists are in Disney movies for females, and how big the hands are for males, and then how big the eyes are for females? Yeah. So manifest socially defined beauty starts right from the get-go for girls and continues in all sorts of ways. You small waists, right? So then the idea is that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Well, the beholder is the male gaze. The beholder is what is considered beautiful, is often defined by society, which is defined by the dominant culture, which is defined mostly by the male white dominant culture, because that's where the money is and where we project all of our stuff. That's just a generalized thing there, so don't get all mad at me about that. So if a high premium is placed on feminine beauty, and beauty is equated with virtue in the majority of traditional fairy tales, right? Like you're just wonderful and virginal and passive, and that's all you are. Then in order to get your prince, you got to be beautiful, and that's all you need to do is be beautiful. Beautiful in their eyes. What is beauty in their eyes? And there's a lot of different ways to define what is beautiful, but in these fairy tales, very narrow definition of beauty, which is really damaging to females all ages. This was a Cosmopolitan cover, a UK cover that I found in 2018, and I found this tweet that was in conjunction with it. Wow, slays me. Trying to figure out how different my life and self image would be if I had grown up seeing women of all sizes represented like this. Powerful stuff, right? To see yourself in society. We've already talked about that a little bit more, and we will. To be reflected in your society so that you feel worthy, right? So it doesn't happen in a lot of fairy tales because the princesses are beautiful. They are kind of powerless. They're just there to get their prince, and then they're realized with that. And then they live happily ever after, right? So I love this quote. When the heroine is beautiful, she need not do anything to merit being chosen by the prince. She's chosen simply because she's beautiful. And remember, dominant culture beautiful. As this message is repeated story after story after story after story, we come to accept as natural the notion that passive, beautiful females are rewarded, right? Don't get hysterical. Don't get mad. That you're not rewarded if you're that kind of woman. So fairy tales tell us something really important. We got to know this, that happiness for a woman is to be passive, victimized, destroyed, or asleep. That's it. She was asleep for at least 100 centuries, right? Ooh, that's a long time. Also, in fairy tales, if you are a powerful female, you can't be beautiful at the same time. You can't have power and beauty. Doesn't work. Well, it is does for the one. What is it? What's her name? One of the latest ones with Angelina Jolie. So she's considered beautiful, but she's powerful too. I can't remember the name of those Disney movies. Okay, so again, you can't have power and beauty. And we come across that all the time. Powerful women are maligned for their looks in our society. I'm sure you can think of a number of examples of that. So, fairy tales say, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? Right? We want to do that. We want to be beautiful. Warning, socially constructed ideas of beauty. What's that? Let's talk about it. So we know that gender is constructed by culture and society. Well, what are you saying? Like, if you're born a boy, you're born a girl. What are you talking about? Well, the deal is sex roles are biologically determined, right? But gender roles is behavior that is shaped by your society, by your culture. And so it kind of, you get ideas of what is considered to be feminine and what's considered to be masculine. And those things change. Not that much anymore, right? We're kind of more global and media is so powerful, but things change and shift a little bit for sure. I mean, man buns, what, 2 decades ago wouldn't be happening, right? For people that have hair that can be put in a bun. So some of the stereotypes and some of the ways that we shape things is that men are supposed to be tough. You're not supposed to cry. Men don't cry. Boys don't cry, right? And we expect our females to be very caregivers and sweet and wonderful and have no strength whatsoever. So when you hit like a girl, hello, you're not doing very good. I sure would like to hit like this girl. Okay. Sex and gender, what's the difference? Again, structural and functional is sex, but gender is shaped by your society, by media, by all sorts of things, what, school and peers and teachers and parents and just everything. So then the bum deal for that is that if we're shaped by our culture, um, uh, the idea of femininity is less than masculinity, right? In all sorts of ways, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But just again, there's a disparity there. There's not equity in that. It's not as powerful to be female in any shape or form in our society in terms of all sorts of stuff, representation in media and politics and everywhere else. So that's kind of the bum deal. So if children know as young as like 2 years old or even less now, because they're getting so much smarter, if they're girls or boys, it's not to say that being able to recognize if you're a girl or a boy is a bad thing, but the idea is that one of those genders doesn't really get the big wow factor as the other one, and so that's a little concerning, or actually more than a little concerning. And as I was saying, gender is shaped, and you probably heard this example a million times. Like pink used to be a boy's color not that long ago in the scheme of things, like Victorian age and in the 30s, 1920s, 30s, like right around there, maybe 40s, I think. And pink was a boy's color because it was a derivative of red, which is a powerful color. And blue was a girl's color because it's a placid and serene, peaceful color, just like girls, right? And look at this. So these are rattles, baby rattles for 3-month-olds. And so for the sweet baby girl, we have an engagement ring. To put a ring on it, right? And for the busy boy, the busy baby boy, we have a hammer. I mean, you can do so much more with a hammer. You defend yourself, build anything you want, control your world. So am I saying that these kind of things shouldn't happen? No, these kinds of gifts shouldn't happen. No, but they happen a lot, and that shapes a lot of how we view our girls and we view our boys. I mean, it's really influential. Subtle stuff, maybe, but big when you put it all together. Rich, upper class, and upper middle class kids, boys, wore their finery, and their finery was dresses to show their wealth and stuff. Not that long ago, really. So when we look at some of the stuff, gender bias unfair treatment or preference over one gender over the other. And equality means just opportunities to have equity. Not the same stuff all the time, but just the ability to have a fair crack at everything that you want to have a fair crack at. Oh, that's really an academic definition. And hegemonic, right, is the ruling or dominant in a political or social context. So we have that both politically and socially, that we are dominated by white males, right? And that's our society, and politically and socially, and it's getting better. I'm not saying that, right? It's getting better. Oh, Jupiter, stop. Sorry, someone's honking as they wave because my house is right by the school. Okay, so we're looking at the idea that princesses remain passive, and their passivity and beauty gets their prince, right? We're back to the princesses again. We left her sleeping, contemplating if and once upon a time would come when princesses were presented with attributes stronger than just the inane ability to passively await their fate. Yes, good idea. And we also have to look at the way that most fairy tales are constructed, and they're constructed um, always pushing for romantic love and heterosexual practices, right? So there's not any difference in family structure or who you can love. It's all pretty straightforward, and there's a prince and there's a princess, and that's about it. So that also does not reflect our culture, our society, and it also perpetuates that there's only one way to be, um, and to be that way, you're rewarded, and otherwise, you're diminished. So this is a really fun, I think, a fun video on takeoff on like what all the princesses are doing. So that will be in Canvas. Just watch it. I think it's great. So what's happened, started happening in the 70s, is let's rework these fairy tales. Let's make them, we'll make the girls strong, and we'll do that, and then everything will be okay. So there was a very popular fairy tale, The Paper Bag Princess, and the deal is that it didn't come off that great in terms of really making a strong protagonist, a female protagonist, right? It just kind of was this snarky tale, and even though the princess rescues the prince and doesn't marry him after all, it's still a ruse. It's still like a sham, for sure. Smoke and mirrors. So in the article you read, they're talking about that, you can't just swap roles and think it's going to be okay. You can have these fully fleshed characters, and your female characters need to be strong and not just a mirror image of what a strong prince character is or something. So it did it. I mean, it was a popular book. It probably still is, but it kind of falls short of really fleshing out and making a good fairy tale. Darn, right? So again, the idea is that you can't just do this role reversal and get something that's authentic and strong enough, and that kids will buy. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in the Disney movies either. This was Brave, came out, and that was like the first time. Hello, there was a mother. That the princess had a mother. Every other one, they're all dead, and they just had the dad, the king. There was a queen, right? And the princess and the queen had relationships. They knew each other. They cared about each other. So Merida was this kind of strong, cool tomboy princess that that sorry that didn't really necessarily want to get married, and but of course her dad got all the prospective people into the village, and said, you can you shoot for my daughter, and she said, I'll shoot for myself, because she was really good at bow and arrow stuff, archery, yeah. And the cool thing is that even though they didn't market this, like I said, the mother and daughter had a really cool relationship, so that was another plus. But the deal was still, no matter what, is that Merida, still the goal was to get her married. She was supposed to get married no matter what. She could be rebellious, she could be strong, and she could have a fabulous relationship with a living mother, but she's still, the best and most important thing she had to do was get married, right? And then, under play this and diminish it even more by her three suitors being total buffoons. So, so she's still supposed to do that. And I thought what was interesting is that Merida kind of did stuff on her own a lot, and and she didn't have a community of female peers. It's like she was this rebel, right? And she only could rebel alone. And that I don't know. I just thought that was interesting. So anyway, here's just one more thing on this, and I'll let it go. Is that so? There's this princess hall of princesses for all the Disney princesses, and you get inducted. Each of these princesses get inducted. So the deal was when Merida was getting inducted, she went from the one on the left to that sultry, voluptuous, no arrow and bows Merida with that lovely hair and more almond-shaped eyes. That's beauty. That's dominant culture beauty, right? And even the director for Brave was disappointed in this because she just kind of wanted to, portray this every girl like that. We're just, we don't have to be all that to be a princess. So interesting. But this is also interesting is that we've had to dissect, I and many others dissected all the Disney princesses in this Brave that, really went forward with lots of great ideas, but we're still kind of bummed out. But Peggy Ornstein, who wrote Cinderella Ate My Daughter, a really great book, she said, it's too bad that we're just nitpicking over this one movie or one character because we just need a ton of characters and some of them can be crappy. Like there's all sorts of male characters, right? Some of them are really good and some are really crappy. So they don't have to hold up the world, right? At least white males don't have to hold up the world and be the perfect example of their whatever to be, recognized. And so that's kind of the problem too. I think it's just interesting. Interesting. So fairy tales and their influence are still like right here with us every day, and they help shape the idea of what girls are, especially with effective marketing. You see everyone with their little princess dresses on. You see them with some little bow slapped on their head, even when they don't have any hair. It's here. It's really here. I have attached or linked a really great poem. It's called Wishbone, I think. Yeah, and it talks about how a mother would like to see her daughter, be a princess, but be more for sure. So, did everyone live happily ever after? I'm not sure. But your video is going to be, boom, this one. It's a TED Talk. And I just like it. I mean, it took me a while to realize how much I liked it. It's not my favorite, but it's like maybe in the top 7. So I think it's really interesting what this person says. So I want you to be sure to look at that and do your commentary on that. And, they all lived happily ever after. I love that. Don't get me wrong, I love Disneyland. So I'm a contradiction for sure. So I wanted to talk briefly about the Princess Project. That's there for you too. It's on the canvas for this week. And you're just going to build your own princess because we looked at different princesses, and there are strong traits to every princess. Cinderella, for sure. Like, what for Cinderella? I don't know if she could talk to birds or something. But like Sleeping Beauty, she sleeps forever and waits. I mean, that's talk about, longevity, sticking to something. So this is going to be in the activity thingy boppy for you. And so if you have any questions, let me know. But here it is. Just follow those and post those. And this was kind of a long lecture, and they're not all this long, so stick with it. Glad you got through it. And don't forget to do the quiz. Then pull out 3 points, right? 3 points, and wow, then you're done. Whew, okay, take care.